Hello there, this is David from David Books and Comics, and I thought I'd give you a sampling of the digest size comic books that I have. And these are published in the late 1970s and into the early 1980s. And basically, they're reprints. That's why a lot of comic book collectors don't tend to talk about them. But they did encapsulate some of the best kind of reprints of and some of the best stories that appeared in the comic books in from DC and also from Marvel Comics. So what you see here is five classic tales. I think I've shown this in a previous episode of Batman, who some of you may have guessed is one of my favorite superheroes of all time. And this, of course, has artwork by Neil Adams. This one will kill you, Batman. So there you go. That's some Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams goodness. Yeah, and this one, I think I've shown this one in a previous episode, but anyway, there's more to see. So there's Batman's villains. And this is the Detective Comics one. So you have Elongated Man there, Martian Manhunter, and tells you the stories. Of course, starts off with a honest to goodness Batman story. And there's a Robin and Batgirl story with art by Gil Kane. Well, you wouldn't know it with Vinnie Coletti's heavy inking. Anyway, so that's that one. And there's the Batman family book I showed in a previous episode. Nice, clean copy of that with beautiful artwork. And of course, there's this one. I've shown that in a previous episode as well. So it has some nice, and there's that famous Joker's Five-Way Revenge, a very classic story, drawn by Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, probably inked by Neil Adams, and the story, of course, is by Denny O'Neil. There's that. And there's this beautiful Jonah Hex painted cover. And this is a digest, DC Blue Ribbon Digest number 2. You can look at the copyright date. This is from 1979. The famous weird Western tales that were this anti-hero of one of the best Western series, I think, of all time. The anti-hero Jonah Hex appears. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. And there is El Diablo, another character that appeared in the weird Western comic books, which is one of the most unique masked Western characters in comic books. Beautifully drawn. Art here is by Neil Adams. Story is by Cary Bates. Anyway, so that's Jonah Hex from the Weird Western Tales comic books. And that beautiful painted cover. And of course, there's the Green Lantern. That's why Green Lantern, Hal Jordan Green Lantern is there. That's the Golden Age and the Silver Age Green Lanterns. Blue Ribbon Digest number 4. And these are some early reprints from the Silver Age. Just curious to see page 99 here. And there's Star Sapphire, one of Green Lantern's arch villains from the Silver Age. Really love that artwork. It's Gil Kane goodness is what it is. So that's that. Nice, clean copy of this one. Digest size. And this is a rougher copy. Beautiful Neil Adams cover. And there's some Neil Adams faces. These are the stories in the book. How's that? Beautiful artwork. So there's that one. And this is the Adventure Comics Digest. And there's some Jim Aparo. Jim Aparo Aquaman. He's one of the better Aquaman artists. Along with Nick Cardy, who drew a lot of the best Aquaman covers from the Silver Age. All right. And of course, those of us who've collected the Phantom in the Charlton comics know of Jim Aparo's art. Always consistent. When he went on to draw the Spectre, we can see some of his best work on the Spectre, actually. Kind of a darker version, I think, of the Phantom. Beautiful, beautiful splash page. And there's Supergirl. That's an early Supergirl, art by Jim Mooney, of course. Jim Mooney's artwork reminds me, and he did go on to draw some of the Spider-Man issues after John Romita left. Of course, it was largely taken over by Ross Andru, but for a while. But there you go, some Jim Mooney Silver Age artwork. And there's some C.C. Beck, Captain Marvel. And there you go. There's Gardner Fox, Murphy Anderson, Spectre. Although I believe most people would agree that as much as I like Murphy Anderson, especially in his work in Hawkman, I do appreciate Jim Aparo's work on the Spectre the best. All right, so that's Adventure Comics. And this is Warlord. The art here is by Mike Grell. And those who've read the Warlord series, this is a complete series. It's a complete story. This is what's called the Deimos Saga. Excuse me. So this is Warlord in the Deimos Saga. And there's Mike Grell, beautiful splash page. And there's he's like the Warlord is kind of a science fiction, sword and sorcery, fantasy series all mixed into one. Very interesting saga. It features all the tropes and themes that you'd find in actually sword and sorcery fiction. So that's the Warlord. And this is one of the best series ever. Is of course Sergeant Rocks, one of the best war series, with echoes of the early pre-code EC Comics war comic books. And it has, of course, Sergeant Rock, the Unknown Soldier, and Enemy Ace. And here's some Joe Kubert goodness here. And of course, Enemy Ace was literally a World War I fighter pilot And here he is. He's a World War I fighter pilot who is a bit like the noble soldier fighting for the enemy. That's why he's called Enemy Ace. But always beautifully drawn by Kubert, and a genuine anti-hero. And there's Patrol to Nowhere with a story by Bob Haney and Mort Drucker. Great, great artwork. And there's The Unknown Soldier. I always remember those kind of graphic art intros into the Unknown Soldier comic book series. Always kind of depressing and tragic. That's how I always found the Unknown Soldier to be, depressing and tragic. That's how he's always shown on the covers, wearing almost like a mummified mask, because you never really know who he is and what he looks like. He's all these different characters throughout each of the stories because he's wearing a new mask. And of course, the series lent itself to creativity by both the writers and the artists. All right, so that's Sergeant Rock's Prize Battle Tales. And there's some Green Arrow. There's the Green Arrow with his oft sidekick, the Black Canary. And then the Golden Age Green Arrow with his oft sidekick, Speedy. And of course, you saw Speedy and the Green Arrow in the Arrow series that was out on TV. This has some beautiful artwork. Yeah, this is a story by Bob Haney, art by Neal Adams. So, let's see, I'll show you one of the classic images. Incredible storytelling, both in picture, art, and in story. This one is by Mike Grell. And What Can One Man Do? This story is by Neal Adams and Ink Giordano. The writer is Elliot Magan. And let's see if it shows it. What a classic image that shows in this story. What can one man do, it says. And of course, there you go. You never see a superhero with tears. It's one of the few images that gives a lasting impression in comic books. Beautifully drawn by Neal Adams. So that's the Green Arrow. And this is, of course, the Lone Ranger's Western Treasury. This is from Gold Key, of course, with those beautiful painted covers. This one is really worn. But the art, interior art for the Lone Ranger stories was always consistently good. Right from the days when it was published by Dell, and it was hugely popular in the Dell comic books, with spin-offs of the Lone Ranger's horse, Silver, and this is a reprint of one of the early Dells, and Tonto also had his own comic book. Hugely, hugely popular in its day with those gorgeous painted covers, which I'll show in a future episode. So that's that. That's the digest side, Golden Comics Digest. Lone Ranger's Western Treasury. And this one you've seen in a previous episode when I showed the Archie superheroes. Seen some of that already. So that's that. And of course, Marvel also did their own digests, and they've done subsequently in recent years, they've done their own digests. This is Spider-Man. Cover art, of course, is by John Romita. These are the stories. There you go. The Brainwasher. How's that for a title? The story would have been by Stan the Man Lee, yeah. All right. I believe that's Mary Jane's father. Yeah, Mary Jane. Not Mary Jane, sorry, Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy. That's what he looked like as drawn by John Romita. I think John Romita actually created the look of the character. And there's the Kingpin. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. That's what the next part of the line is. What a tangled web we weave. That's when Peter Parker was living a complicated life. And there's Norman Osborn. All right, so that's that. Nice splash image by John Romita of the Kingpin. And there's another Spider-Man. This is number 2. And the interior and cover art is by John Romita. Doc Ock. And I think it's the Prowler. Doc Ock. Okay, Doc Ock. Yeah, these are all Doc Ock stories. So that's the digest size Marvel version. And in recent years, they came out with this. This is The Wild Thing. It's basically a reprint. And The Wild Thing is a kind of female version of Wolverine. As presented here in a kind of alternate universe. The Wild Thing stories collected by and drawn by Ron Lim, but written by Larry Hama. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this foray into looking at some digest size comic books. Of course, digest size comic books in Japan are the way they publish their comic books. But these are the early from the DC anyway, from the late 1970s and into the early 1980s. And it features some beautiful and sometimes, in some cases, only reprints of some of these classic issues. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, remember to give me that like, thumbs up, click on the thumbs up, and thank you everyone for subscribing. The channel continues to grow, and please feel free to comment. All right, thanks. Bye.